All right, we get to do some more exploring. So let's see what we can discover about the consecutive angles in a parallelogram. How are they related? Right, so first let's make sure we understand what consecutive angles are. Consecutive angles are angles that are, I kind of think of them as in a row. So if you're going around a polygon or a quadrilateral, a more specific polygon, A and B are consecutive. You go from A to B, those are consecutive angles. B and C are consecutive because you go from B right to C. C and D are consecutive, and D and A are consecutive. So, how are A and B related to each other? How are angle B and angle C related to each other? That's what we're trying to figure out. Well, guess what? We're working with a parallelogram. By definition, a parallelogram has opposite sides parallel. So let's focus on BC being parallel to AD. Well, if BC is parallel to AD, let's extend our parallel lines. And we can see that side AB is, if we extend that, crossing through the parallel lines. So here we have a set of parallel lines cut by a transversal. We're just going to focus on this side of our parallelogram. To make life a little bit easier, I'm just going to label this angle right there as 1 and this angle right here as 2. So now I can reference angle 1 and angle 2 and we'll know what I'm talking about from the picture. So angle 1 and angle 2, that's an angle pair. They're not alternate interior angles like what we had in our video a couple videos ago, but they are inside of the parallel lines, but they are on the same side of the transversal. So these are your same side interior angles. So when BC is parallel to AD, that means that angle 1 and angle 2 are same side interior angles. So what do we remember about same side interior angles? They are not congruent with parallel lines cut by a transversal. They are going to be supplementary. So angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. So we could continue this around the entire parallelogram and we would have the same result. So essentially what we are discovering, and we won't take the time to do it for every pair of consecutive angles, but it's all going to work out the same way. So consecutive angles, and this is in a parallelogram, are supplementary. That's how they are related. All right, part B, how are opposite angles in a parallelogram related? Well, why don't we continue what we were working on before, where we extended our parallel line. So, yep, we have a parallelogram, so BC is parallel to AD, we extend that. We can extend our transversal right here. We have angle 1, angle 2. And I'm going to bring in side CD over here is parallel to side AB. And here we've got a transversal, so we're going to talk about angle 3 as well. In this picture, where are the opposite angles? So angle 1 and angle 3 are opposite. So how do they relate to each other? Well, what do we know? We know that angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary because, I'm just going to abbreviate that, they're supplementary because they are consecutive angles. While angle 2 and angle 3 are consecutive angles, so we know that angle 2 and angle 3 are also supplementary. So what we're saying is angle 1 is supplementary to angle 2, but angle 3 is also supplementary to angle 2. So when you have angles that are supplementary to the same angle, that means that they will be congruent. So here's what that looks like when we write it out. angle 1 and angle 3 are both supplementary to the same angle. In this case, angle 2. So that means that angle 1 has to be congruent to angle 3. So guess what that means? Opposite angles in a parallelogram are congruent. So that's how they relate. Opposite angles are congruent. Okay, part C. Now that we know some things, let's find the measures of angle A, B, and C. So what do we know? Well, we have one angle, and we're also still working with a parallelogram. So with a parallelogram, first thing I'm going to label is opposite sides are congruent. That's just a quick one to do. So if I know angle D, that means we also know angle B is going to be 114. We also discovered that consecutive angles will be supplementary. So where are my consecutive angles? Well, B and C are supplementary. So angle B, 114, plus angle C will equal 180. B and A are supplementary, so I could use that pair if I want. So maybe I'll just go with angle A because it's just right there. So angle A is going to be equal to 180 minus 114 because A and B are supplementary. 180 minus 114 gives us 66 degrees. So angle A is 66 degrees. Well, guess what? I guess I like the opposite angles the best. If A is 66, the opposite angle C must also be 66. So now we have figured out the measure of angles A, B, and C. And you can double check, are your consecutive angles supplementary? So is 114 plus 66 180? It is. Here's another 66 plus 114 equals 180. Here's a 114 plus 66 equals 180. You guys get it. All right, so that brings us to, we got three theorems. This will be quick to fill in. So the consecutive angles of a parallelogram. If a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then its consecutive angles are supplementary. Well, great, we already knew that. We figured that out. So if you have this parallelogram, then that means that angle A plus angle B will equal 180. Angle B plus angle C will equal 180. Angle C plus angle D equals 180. And angle D plus angle A equals 180. So that's just going through each pair of consecutive angles, showing that they are supplementary. All right, the opposite angles of a parallelogram. If a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then its opposite angles are congruent. So if you have this parallelogram, then that means the opposite angles are congruent. So angle A will be congruent to angle C, and angle B will be congruent to angle D. Those are those opposite angles. All right, last one. This we did not have an example for, but it's good to just look at, or it's good to be aware of. The diagonals of a parallelogram. So if you can connect your diagonals, what's the relationship? They are not going to be congruent to each other, but the diagonals will bisect each other. So what that means is they cut each other in half. So AX will be congruent to AZ, and AW will be congruent to AY.